Right, so my name is Eric Michaud. I'm a PhD student at MIT. And I'll just be giving a little taste of this work, which we're presenting at NeurIPS this week. It's called the Quantization Model of Neural Scaling. It's work with Ziming, Liu, Zai-Girit, and Max. And the sort of basic question that we're interested in here is just how does scaling change what neural networks learn? Right, so how should we think about the difference between larger networks trained on more data and smaller networks trained on less data, particularly for language models? And there's a couple of facts about neural scaling that we're really trying to wrestle with here. Sort of one is neural scaling laws, right? So the mean loss across the whole sort of data distribution drops off sort of predictably and sort of smoothly as a power law, right? As a function of number of parameters or number of data points. But then perhaps when we look at particular capabilities of models, there might be these qualitative changes that happen with scale. This is slightly controversial now, but I'll move past that for the sake of time. Okay, so there's lots of different models of neural scaling that you could come up with. Here's one, here's ours. So first, we sort of imagine that the task of doing prediction, like language modeling, perhaps sort of reduces to sort of implicitly or decomposes into learning lots of different things, which you sort of model as being discrete. So imagine like to do language modeling well, you need lots of knowledge, lots of skills. We're going to call these the quanta of the problem and just say that sort of models or model it as that models either sort of learn them or they don't. And we sort of might refer to this in this sort of grandiose way as the quantization or quanta hypothesis. This is unrelated to this word quantization and how people normally use it in machine learning. Here we're kind of making this analogy to physics. In 1900, Max Planck saying that maybe energy was quantized into discrete chunks, and here we're going to say, oh, what if like learning is sort of quantized into these discrete chunks? Okay, and then maybe some things enable you to do prediction better than others. They lower the mean loss more. So we can imagine ordering all these quanta. And then we're just going to say that the effect of scaling is to learn more quanta. Okay, so it's very simple. Ultimately, just you have to learn a bunch of things. Scaling enables you to learn more things. And then, in order to get power law scaling, you maybe need to add this extra ingredient, which is that if the frequencies at which each of these quanta, these pieces of knowledge, are sort of useful for prediction, follow a power law, then this can translate into power law scaling. So I guess just really quick, it's possible to construct data where this type of story of scaling seems to sort of roughly describe what's going on. These are sort of toy tasks that's actually based on sparse parity, recently studied by Boaz and friends. And here we sort of see that the mean loss sort of averages over lots of these more interesting transitions as the network's performance improves on different subsets of the data. Where here these different subtasks are sort of power law distributed in frequency. Then we can also see scaling in parameters or scaling in training samples for multi-epoch training, where on the top the mean loss decreases as a power law, but then this is sort of averaging over lots of these interesting transitions where the network's performance improves in this more sort of discrete way on different subsets of the data. Okay, so it's kind of complicated whether this story actually describes language modeling, but just the only thing I'll say now is one thing that we try to do in the paper is decompose the task of language modeling into a bunch of subtasks and sort of decompose a language model into, or sort of the behavior of a language model into a bunch of different skills. We do this basically just by clustering samples based on a model's gradient and predicting them, and you get sort of interesting clusters. Not all of them are meaningful, but some of them are sort of suggestive. So, for instance, this cluster of samples all involves predicting a number which continues some numerical sequence. So you can imagine, one of the subtasks that you need to learn to do language modeling is learning how to increment sequences. Imagine maybe language modeling as a whole sort of decomposes into lots of these different subtasks. And just say lastly that sort of in the context of interpretability, I think this is sort of an optimistic story that maybe in principle, large models might be sort of decomposable into these parts which we might be able to understand. And also, in mechanistic interpretability, people often they might look at some particular part of a network, like a neuron or an attention head, and then ask, well, what does this do across the data? And then sort of on the other hand, you might take some specific behavior of a model and try to understand that particular behavior mechanistically. But here, kind of what we're trying to do, right, is in this automated way across sort of the whole data distribution, try to identify or think about finding, what are the right things to try to understand mechanistically, even in the first place. And so I'd really be interested in chatting with people more about what this might look like. How would you know that you found the right units to study within the network? Thanks.